Could we see Jeffrey Epstein's list soon? Attorney General Pam Bondi says she hopes to release the flight logs and names today. Bondi made the announcement yesterday on Fox News, adding that the identities of more than 250 victims need to be protected when releasing the documents. Epstein died by suicide in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. The disgraced financier often socialized with powerful individuals like celebrities and royalty and owned a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. People that have been reported in court filings who were tied to Epstein include President Trump, former President Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, magician David Copperfield, Michael Jackson, and former Vice President Al Gore. The FBI published documents regarding its probe into Epstein early in 2024 rather. Individuals were seen leaving the White House today carrying binders that say the Epstein Files, Phase 1, and declassified across the cover. Visit thehill.com for the latest on the story when the files are released. President Donald Trump held his first cabinet meeting of the new administration Wednesday, and while he's not actually in the cabinet, billionaire Elon Musk was a commanding force inside the room. Trump teed up his right-hand man to take the lead in reporting what they claim are their accomplishments in slashing the size of the federal government. Musk is one of the most prominent figures in the Trump administration, something that might not be sitting well with some Republican lawmakers. Joining me now is The Hill's national political reporter and author of the very smart and very funny 1230 Report, Cate Martel. Thanks so much for coming on. Let's talk about this Musk appearance at the Trump cabinet meeting yesterday. Here's President Trump.
Anybody unhappy with Elon? If you are, we'll throw him out of here. We have a lot of respect for Elon and that he's doing this, and some disagree a little bit, but I will tell you, for the most part, I think everyone's not only happy, they're thrilled.
So in public, it's kumbaya, but what's happening behind the scenes?
Drew, it's certainly not kumbaya behind the scenes. We're seeing this looming turf war being established between cabinet officials and Elon Musk because, you know, these cabinet officials, they're new in their roles, they're trying to get their footing, and now what's unclear is who takes precedence and who has the authority within these agencies. Elon Musk is making a lot of important decisions, and it's unclear at this point who has more power in making these decisions, and it's causing a lot of strife, I think, among cabinet officials, though no one will say that in public.
Yeah, and Senate Republicans held a private meeting yesterday. Elon Musk, a topic of discussion. Some Republicans growing frustrated over the way he's handling cutting government spending, firing workers. Again, in public, though, Republicans are pretty hesitant to criticize Musk. Privately, though, in meetings like this, it appears that frustrations are growing.
Frustrations are growing for two reasons. And one, we're seeing that some Senate Republicans are fairly uncomfortable with the president's positioning on Russia. That's the first one. Now, the second one that's more applicable here is some of the uncomfortability that comes from Senate Republicans is over some of these massive cuts and slashes that are happening to the federal government. That does involve their constituents, and that's, I think, causing some uncomfortability on Capitol Hill. But so far as we've been seeing over the past few weeks, Drew, that most of the action coming out of the second Trump administration is happening from the executive branch, not from Capitol Hill. So I wouldn't say these Republican senators are particularly emboldened because most of the action that we've seen and most of the priorities have happened through executive action, not on Capitol Hill mostly.
Yeah, and in other Doge news, Musk's department has been saying that it saved $65 billion canceling government contracts, but the department has quietly revised its tabulations in reported savings after the New York Times and other media outlets found some discrepancy in what they were reporting. So how much has the department actually saved?
So while there has been savings and there is this public log online, this wall of receipts as Elon Musk calls it, and like you said, there's riddled with errors. So it's unclear how much has actually been saved. For example, an $8 billion cut from ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, was actually $8 million, not $8 billion. And that $655 million cut at USAID, that was listed 3 times when it was actually only once. So the numbers are still quite unclear, but what we do know from AP reporting that nearly 40% of the contracts are actually not going to save the government any money. So there's a lot of open questions, Drew.
All right, we'll continue to follow that. Cate Martel, thanks so much.
Thanks, Drew.
In the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, officials are zeroing in on sanctuary cities like New York, Chicago, and Boston. Take a listen to Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, at CPAC last week.
I read a story last night, the police commissioner of Boston. You said you doubled down on not helping the law enforcement officers of ICE. I'm coming to Boston. I'm bringing hell with me.
So how do Bostonians feel about the Trump administration bringing hell to Beantown? We're bringing in Matt Taglia, Senior Director of Emerson College Polling, with details. Matt, thanks for joining us. According to your latest poll among Boston voters, more than half, 51%, approved of the Boston Trust Act. The law bars Boston police from turning over people to the feds solely for immigration violations. A little less than a third disapproved. Break down the crosstabs for us. Does this just show that Boston is a liberal city, or is there bipartisan resistance to Trump's immigration agenda there?
Yeah, Drew, and we, as you said, we do see overall approval of the Boston Trust Act, but I wouldn't necessarily characterize this as bipartisan resistance. We do see Democrats and independents overall approve of the act. And so the main opposition is among Republicans. So a plurality of them are opposed, but we do see a third of them actually approve of the act. We also see that women and minority voters approve, men approve as well by a lower margin. And then we see about 17% aren't really sure. So, this might not be a major policy win, but it's pretty clear that Bostonians aren't angry over the Trust Act.
And in contrast, Boston voters seem split on the city's ability to accommodate migrants seeking sanctuary. A slight majority said the city did not have that ability. Matt, this seems almost contradictory to the broader support for the Boston Trust Act. What does that tell you about how voters there view immigration? Is this a not in my backyard type issue?
Yeah, I really think these are complementary results. About half of the electorate approve of the Trust Act, and then about half of the electorate have faith that the city government can deal with an influx of migrants. So I think that this is really a difference here between policy and implementation. Many will recall last year during an influx of migrants into the city and the city's response. And we see similar results here to the Trust Act. About 40% of Republicans and independents actually say that Boston does have the ability to accommodate migrants to serve as a sanctuary city. I think we see this reflected in Mayor Wu's approval as well. That's split about 41% approve to 38% disapprove. And again, the right direction, wrong track. Most folks think that the city is headed in the right direction. So, this is not necessarily a NIMBY issue. I think it's more about confidence in Boston city government and how they would deal with another influx of migrants in the city.
All right, interesting polling. Matt Taglia, thanks so much for your insight.
Thank you.
Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife have been found dead in their New Mexico home. Foul play is not suspected, according to the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office. News Nation's Xavier Walton has the latest on this tragic story.
Drew, the movie industry still reeling from this shocking news coming out on Thursday. We were able to speak with the Santa Fe County Sheriff. He says, telling News Nation, that at this point, early on in the investigation, it appears that there was no foul play suspected. Meantime, that same sheriff telling News Nation they found Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa dead in their Santa Fe, New Mexico home. This was yesterday afternoon. The sheriff adding right now no exact cause of death, and they're in the early stages of this investigation. Reports suggest it was actually a neighbor that may have been the first to notify police by calling for a welfare check. Their dog was also found dead inside of their home. Hackman has lived in Santa Fe since the 1980s. He lived there with his wife and renowned piano player Betsy, who he married back in 1991. Reportedly, according to police, she was 64 years old. Hackman was 95. Hollywood's still reacting to this news. Viola Davis posting to her Instagram saying, "Loved you and everything. The Conversation, The French Connection, The Poseidon Adventure, Unforgiven." And then George Takei also posting on X saying, "We have lost one of the true giants on the screen. Gene Hackman could play anyone and you could feel a whole life behind it." So Drew, certainly some sad news as people are waking up and hearing this really for the first time. Gene Hackman dead at the age of 95.
News Nation's Xavier Walton, thank you. That's today's Daily Debrief. I'm Drew Petrimoulx. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hill's YouTube channel. And come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.